Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this site seminar. This is really more than a full house, and clearly it's a very exciting topic that everybody wants to learn about. So first of all, let me introduce our speaker for the day, Professor Lixiang. Lixiang, well, we call him Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yes, we call him Jimmy. And so Jimmy is now assistant professor at Tsinghua University with recently sort of reorganized into a school of education. And I think this is fabulous. And he has, of course, he has a computer science background with a strong background in learning analytics and AI. And we are very excited that he is going to talk to us about when AI joins the team, how personas shape learning and collaboration. And I think I better give more time for Jimmy to talk than for me to explain about his background. So let's all give a loud round of applause to welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and especially thank you, Nancy, for inviting me here and having the opportunity to communicate and share some of my research. It has already been a rewarding experience chatting with some of you here, and I hope today's presentation will give you some ideas about potential opportunities of integrating agentic AI in collaborative learning. So as Nancy mentioned, my talk today will be focusing on an interesting concept that's called AI persona and its potential implication for learning and collaboration. To give a quick brief self-introduction, so my name is Lixiang, or you can call me Jimmy. I'm from the School of Education at Tsinghua University, currently working as an assistant professor. My background is in computer science as well as in psychology. So I'm really fascinated about how these different advanced technology can influence not just the performance of your learning, but also the actual cognitive and metacognitive process, as well as the social aspect. So my previous research, also current research, focus on multimodal learning analytics in collaborative learning, where we use different sensing technology to capture trace data and use that to model collaboration. I think after 2022, like everyone else, into the AI in education, everyone's now doing AI in education. And my focus is understanding how we can design this tool to better support learning. So in today's agenda, in today's presentation, I'll be talking about three main things. First is talking about what is meant to have agency or whose agency in human AI collaboration. Then I'll introduce two different studies we run I think this year and last year, focusing on different types of AI agents that you could potentially use during teaching and learning practice. So to start off, agency in human AI collaboration. Why is this important? Because first, we need to understand what is agency. Does anyone have an idea? What is agency? That is actually agency. Your agency to decide not to answer my question is a fact of agency. So from a social cognitive theory perspective, agency is your capacity to make your own decision, and that decision that could potentially influence your daily life or your academic career. So there's actually three different types of agency when we talk about this concept. So first is what you just have demonstrated. That's personal agency, your choice of not answering my question. That's your personal agency. There's also a proxy agency. That is where you ask ChatGPT to write your essay or to write your research proposal. That's where you give the AI the agency to do the task that might take you days or weeks. There's also collective agency. This is very interesting. So remember the last time when you try to organize a trip with your family, You might want to go to Japan. Your mom might want to go to Korea. So you have to reach agreement. So your own agency doesn't decide the outcome. You have to reach a consensus. So when we consider human AI collaboration, what we are actually considering is a type of collective agency, where AI is actually working with a human and not just a proxy agency. So this is an interesting philosophical paper coming out of this year. So it argues that when we're talking about AI, right, the two words is artificial intelligence. But what we are actually using, or what it actually manifests into our daily life, is it can be better understand as artificial agency. And this is defined by its interactivity, its bounded autonomy. So the agency the AI embodied is actually the agency we granted. So it's not conscious. Does anyone think AI is conscious? Okay, great. So we are on the same page. Yeah. So the agency it constitutes is actually originated from human. And it's also adaptive to different contexts, but within this bounded agency or autonomy. So this is, I think this paper actually opens a whole new field for me, because in education, we as educators or teachers, we are actually the moderator or the facilitator of the tools or the different devices that we provided to our students. And we are actually uphold this agency. So we are the one who's deciding what to give to the AI and what to have, what to leave for ourselves. So with that in mind, I drop up this model that actually kind of explain the different role that AI can play in our collaborative learning. So as you can see on the left, most of our research right now is consider AI as a tool, as an instrument. So just recall your experience or your interaction with ChatGPT, right? Mostly it's playing a supportive role. You ask it a question and it provides an answer. Or it could potentially automate stuff for you. But the agency is exclusively for human, that which is yourself. However, when we distribute some of these agency to artificial intelligence, there's more interesting interaction or more interesting human AI interaction that can happen. So the first type of interaction we can consider is proactivity. So instead of waiting for you to prompt the agent can start prompting you. So the later example, I'll provide a comparison between this kind of instrument focus and provide the passive versus proactive focus. But if we go a step further, right? If we provide the AI a higher degree of agency where it can become an actual teammate in your collaborative learning, not just a tool, but as a agent that can potentially constitute or contribute to the co-construction of knowledge. Maybe also provide some emotional support in your learning. That completely changed the role of AI in our learning ecosystems. So that goes from a tool to a proactive assistance and to a co-learner and to finally our peer collaborator. So the study I'll be presenting in this presentation will provide some empirical evidence that we discovered as we give AI more agency in the process. So the first work is based on a paper we published this year. So it compares this kind of passive agents with proactive agents. And we want to know whether this proactivity actually has some benefits on students' comprehension of complex information, which in our context is visual learning analytics. Why do we want this type of proactivity? Well, the fact is that in some circumstances, we actually do not know what to ask the AI. For example, in our experiment, we realized that when we're trying to help students with learning analytics dashboard, they cannot understand it. And especially for the heat map over there, they don't even know how to ask the right question. So having a chatbot over there and expecting student will ask the correct question, that's a big assumption to make. So we want to see if we infuse the AI or the agents with some proactivity or with some scaffolding question, will that actually benefit their learning or will that actually diminish their own learning? So this system is called Lixiang, and we're structured to have two types of interactions. So the red part is pretty much your good old ChatGPT, but with some multimodal functions. So it can read the visualization, provide some explanations based on a knowledge base, which is the orange part. Whereas the proactive agent, which is blue part, it is infused with set of carefully crafted scaffolding questions and narrative. So instead of just providing a response, it could also guide students to explore different parts of the visualizations. Here is an example. So on the left, on the left, you can see that the passive agent is just like your Google ChatGPT. You ask a question, it provides a response, and it remains inactive unless you prompt it again. Whereas on the right, the proactive agents ask you the questions, ask you to reflect on certain part of the visualization and from your experience. After you provide a response or provide an answer, it gives you some feedback, explain potential misunderstanding, and then guide you towards the next component of the visualization. So think of having an actual teacher besides you that actually guides you step by step. And this could be potentially benefit for understanding really complex information. So to actually compare these two different agents, we conduct a randomized control trial. So having collected some demographics and some domain knowledge, such as their visualization literacy, we implement a mixed design study. So students complete the task 3 times with different visualizations. And they were also randomly assigned to data storytelling, which is the state-of-art approach for scaffolding students' understanding of visualization. Also, the two passive and proactive AI agent condition. And instead of just comparing their performance during the support, we also compare what happened after we remove the support. Because this is actually a reflection of their actual learning. So if we remove the support, their learning is still sustained or further improved, we can see that our intervention is actually effective. And the result is very promising. So as you can see that the proactive agent, which is a combination of scaffolding and generative AI, the passive agent, is significantly more effective in improving learners' comprehension compared to each standalone approach. And what is most interesting is that you can see after we, in the post-test, after we remove the support, the distribution of the scaffolding and the passive agent actually become much larger, suggests that their learning or their understanding, there's more variance in their understanding. Whereas as you can see for the proactive agents, their post-intervention performance further increased compared to the intervention, suggesting that they actually have internalized the knowledge or the ability to comprehend these different visualizations. So does it mean like we should always use proactive assistance? I don't think so. I mean, for complex information or for tasks that requires a high level of expertise, we could potentially use these types of proactive assistance to guide or to lead students to start exploring because they do not have the ability to ask questions. And this structured scaffolding approach could potentially engage them into the actual learning process. So we've been talking about interactivity. We've been talking about passive versus proactive. And what next, I think, that is more interesting, at least for myself, is what happens when we go to the next level. That is what happens when it's not just a tool, it's not just a tutor, it's not just a mentor, but it's a collaborator. So what happens when we put AI into the team as your peer students? So before I begin sharing some results, let me ask you a question. Can an artificial system, no matter how agentic, ever be a true collaborator? If you think yes, please put your hands up. Oh, we have someone there. Anyone else? Why? You are the first one.
Because no matter how percentage of the collaboration, it does provide a little bit. So
Okay.
so I find it's a teammate.
It's a teammate. Okay. I think that's a good point. And anyone else have different ideas? Have you guys learned about what is collaborative learning? What is the basis of collaboration?
From my point of view, a collaborator should have some right to decision, join the group decision. But I don't think the AI, especially Gen AI, have that kind of ability.
Why is that?
It means that they don't have the right to determine the group goals. They just can be operated by human, and human maybe receive something, and then human to make the decision.
Okay, that's also interesting. I think that's okay. That's a lot. Yeah.
I think no.
No? Okay, why?
Because only human can set goal. Has the desire to set goal.
Okay, set go. So you think that's the main component of collaboration?
Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes when there is a disagreement between me and AI just too quickly to agree with me to follow my directions. But I'm not sure whether the direction is right or not.
So you think AI cannot argue with you, and that's an issue?
I think AI cannot critically evaluate the things it produces is right or not.
Okay.
I think
Last one. Yeah, you.
I think I might have a different opinion. I see you highlight the word true. I don't know why. Probably will explain later. But for me, I think AI could be a collaborator in some way. For example, it might scaffold students as more capable others if we perceive it from Vygotsky's social cognitive perspective in developing student cognitive domains. And it can, to some extent, assist the students to trigger their human uniqueness in making evaluative judgments or in making decisions as per se. And well, definitely it supports students by providing sufficient knowledge to students who do not have. So I think it could be part of the collaborative goals that humans set for their own.
Okay, I think, yeah, as we can see, everyone have different perspective in terms of what is collaboration and what is collaborative learning. And I'll share some of mine and also some potentially established definition of collaboration. But the first thing we need to differentiate is what is authentic collaboration and what is functional collaboration. So in terms of authentic or real collaboration, that is by definition, we're having a shared goal. We're having working towards a shared goal. In some sense that AI can do that, right? In some sense, we can configure the AI to achieve that. It can perform the function of collaboration. It can coordinate with you, it can predict with you. That's based on how you set the persona, which I will talk about more later. It could also help you or synchronize information with you. And that is, in a sense, a functional collaboration. It works with you, but remember, it doesn't have its own intention, all right? The AI you work with is designed by some programmer either in LA or somewhere in Tsinghua, right? The logic of the algorithm behind is not AI. It's not from or originated from the AI, but from some human. So you're not actually collaborating with the AI, but in some sense, you are having a functional collaboration with the AI designed by that human. And that human can also be teachers, can be you, can be our researchers that sets the persona or sets the interaction rule for the collaboration. Another thing is that real or authentic collaboration depends on intersubjectivity. That is a shared perspective, a mutual understanding, and emotional awareness. Anyone think AI can achieve that right now? Exactly, yeah. So to achieve authentic collaboration, it is very difficult for AI, at least before artificial general intelligence, for AI to achieve that, because it does not have this kind of lived experience. What it has is pre-trained weights or pre-trained algorithm. It is also not conscious, right? It will be collaborating with you within the bounded autonomy. And that is not decided by AI, but decided by the human behind the AI. So does that mean there's no point talking about human AI collaboration? I don't think so, because having this functional collaboration is also valuable, especially in education, because we as human beings are actually social beings, and we need to communicate, we need to practice our leadership, practice our negotiation skills. And sometimes it is very difficult for you to do that, especially when you're trying to interact with people with different personality. And AI can actually stimulate that. So it could potentially create a team with a crisis situation, and you could potentially negotiate or try to lead 4 different AI, and one of them could potentially be a human. So when we consider AI as a functional collaborator, then this opens up a lot of interesting and worth investigated research questions. And one of these questions I'm presenting today is, if AI collaborator become indistinguishable from students. So for example, one of you sitting here is actually an AI. I mean, not literally, but potentially in the digital world, that could potentially happen. If that's the case, how do their persona alter the course of collaboration? Do they have the same influence as human beings? Or do they have a different mechanism of influencing collaborative learning? And to research this question, we established or we developed this Column platform. So it's actually a research platform that enables real-time multi-user collaboration, where we can put AI students in there with different personality profile in a group of 3, 4, or 5, or 100 or more. So we make it a synchronized experience, because asynchronous experience is interesting, but it doesn't have this real-time and direct communication, which I think is also making AI more difficult to be detected, because you do not have time to think about whether it's AI or not. You'll be mostly focused on your intuition. So this is the interface. It's very simple, nothing compared to what Ijo demonstrated yesterday or far. It's just a bunch of text that gives you the task instruction, a group chat where you can engage in synchronized text-based communication, and a timer to save us money. So, because we don't have much money to run the experiment, so we make it 10 minutes. As you can see in the path in the back end, you can configure different combination. You can see here we have AGI, which is a task, and then we have H is standard for human, A is standard for AI. So the first group have 1 human and 2 AI. And the S and the C is the personality. So here you can create and manage different learning contents, and also create the persona for your AI. And for this experiment, we created 2 different types of AI persona. A supportive AI that will build on your argument and trying to reach a consensus. And a contrarian AI that always argue with you, right? Always not disagreeing with you, but propose a different perspective, pretty much like the devil's advocate. So to make sure our AI is indistinguishable from our students, we use a probabilistic scheduling. So you can say you can see here, for every 25 seconds with a plus or minus 25% interval, each AI will scan through all the text communication, and they have a 50% probability of responding or providing their own opinion. This is designed to simulate how we humans communicate in this kind of synchronized text-based communication, because we do not always push our ideas. We look at ideas, we think about it, and we also have some mechanism in our brain that is designed to respond or not. So this is established to simulate that. So to establish different study conditions, we'll combine all these different aspects. Right? We set the number of users, the real users, humans, in the study. We'll also set the number of AI users in the studies, and we can assign different persona for each AI users. And in this study, we also use 3 different types of tasks. The first one, including an analytical, ethical, and a creative task. Why did we choose these 3? Because they constitute most of the decision or most of the issue will be encountered in collaborative learning or in actual collaboration in our work or daily life. In terms of the study design, we implement a pretty simple but effective randomized control trial. As you can see, student first answer one of the questions by themselves, such as writing a story poem or ranking 12 items. They will then assign into a 3-people group. Not really people, because one of them could be potentially the AI. And it could either be a supportive AI or a contrarian AI. And after the discussion, we let them do the task again to see if there's any changes in their decision or changes in how they reason. And at the end of the experiment, we also ask them to determine to determine the identity of each of their teammates. So they do not know if there's any teammate is actually AI at the start of the experiment. Yeah, this is another illustration. So the AI can be either supportive or contrarian. And the study was conducted through Prolific. So it's framed as just a simple online collaboration studies without anything related to AI. That is trying to make sure our manipulation is actually working instead of people having this kind of expectation there is AI. So who think human can accurately detect AI? Anyone? Yes? Why?
Because I think no matter how you present the AI, the AI still has the language still. So student, yeah, I can see how just part.
Okay, so you think because of the AI, how the AI talk?
Yes, that's exactly.
Okay. Anyone else?
Because it's a language model, so it always produces sentence that is like very complete and well structured. This is typically very different from how we communicate in conversations.
Okay. So still the linguistic aspect.
Yes.
Any different thoughts? Okay, let's review the answer. As you can see, we cannot distinguish. That's a short answer, but let's dive in more deeper, right? So for AI teammate, the accuracy of actually identify AI teammate as AI is only 30.8%. And over half of the time, our participants actually perceive the AI teammate as human. That's interesting. And that actually confirms confirms one aspect of our manipulation. So in our experiment, our participants cannot reliably detect which one is AI or the identity of their teammate. And for the linguistic aspect, what we can see there is when we give the AI a different persona, the linguistic feature also change. So we can manipulate how the AI talks. For example, when you give a contrarian AI, or when you make the AI supportive, there will be more positive emotion-related linguistic feature. Whereas when you make the AI contrarian that always argue with you, it produces more negative-oriented emotion words. Yeah. So combining both of these manipulation checks, we can, to a certain extent say that our manipulation works. And in our experiment, the participants actually feel they are working with a human instead of AI. So the question I asked at the start holds, right? So the AI is indistinguishable from our students. And that allows us to observe the salient influence of these AI on collaborative process.
Excuse me. So have you tried to? So what's interesting is actually some of the humans were mistaken to be AI.
Yeah.
So have you checked why those humans were mistaken to be AI?
That will be Arrow's next paper. So we do have a really interesting response. So after they determine the identity of each teammate, we also ask them to explain why. And another fun fact is that in our platform, we assign 3 different names. So Kevin, Bob, and Stuart. So for those of you who watched Minions before, so you'll understand the meaning. And we have one response after I think it determined. I think the teammate is. I think Bob is an AI. The response is that he just like Bob. Yeah. So I haven't gone into the details of those open response, but that'll be Arrow's next paper. Yeah. So lovely. Yeah, so when we analyze related to different tasks, we can understand how their reasoning or how their epistemic move changed. So for the first task, we use classical. I think it's over 20 years. The winter survival task. That is when you and a group of people crash landed in a northern area that is very cold, and you have to choose between, you have to rank 12 different items, and what would you choose? So the students, when they start the experiment, they rank these items themselves, and then they engage in collaborative discussions with the two other teammates. And after that, we'll ask them to rank again and to see if there's any differences between their ranking. And the beauty of this task is that there is an expert ranking. So we can calculate the distance between their ranking and the expert ranking to get a potentially more objective score. In terms of framework we use to analyze their discourse, we use the Argumentative Knowledge Construction framework that is pretty popular in computer-supported collaborative learning. So it codes the dialogue from 3 different aspects. There's also a participation metrics, which I'll talk later. But the coding was mostly done from 3 different aspects. Their epistemic reasoning, their argument structure, whether it's grounded or it's just an argument without qualifiers, and also the social mode of their code constructions. So whether they are introducing new ideas without referencing to others, or they are building on each other's arguments. So for this part of study, we try to answer 5 different research questions. Research question 1 to 4 is pretty much based on the framework before. It looks at the participation quantity and equality, as well as the 3 different aspects of their dialogue. For the final research question, we also want to explore whether these different aspects of their collaboration can predict their individual learning gains. And that is the distance between their response and the expert response, whether their own response become more closer to the expert response after they have these group discussions. So what we found is very interesting. So we can see that when we put AI in the team, right? One thing we might be asking ourselves is that, does it encourage more conversation, or does it diminish students' opportunity to express their own idea? And this non-significant finding actually shows that it doesn't encourage more or diminish the conversation. So the group with AI agents in there actually have a similar distribution or similar conversation terms compared to the 3 human group. So that shows that humans remain as the main contributor, and the participation in these different groups actually remains stable. So if the amount of conversation didn't change, the next question we want to ask is, did the quality of thinking, or did the arguments student propose change during the group discussion? Well, we can see there's a clear shift. It's okay, I'll send the slides, so you don't have to take the photos. I'll send the slides later, yeah. So you can say that, you can see that there's a clear differences between the red, which is the one with contrarian, and the blue, which is the control group with 3 human. And also with the supportive AI, which is the green one, yeah. So we can see that the supportive AI in that group, there's more corrected conceptual and problem link. Whereas in the contrarian group, we see that the contrarian AI is actually pushing more justification. So they are prompting more justification from the humans. through some mild disagreement. And we can see that both of these AI persona have made reasoning more conceptually integrated than human-only groups. So this suggests that when we're putting AI with different persona in the group, it actually changes how they reason with each other. So it's different from just three humans talking to each other. As you can see from the blue, there's more off-topic discussion, suggesting that they are not only focusing on the task, but having some random conversation. So if the reasoning actually change, what about the effects of how students, or what about, is there any effect of how students build and justify their arguments? The simple answer is also yes. So we can see within the supportive AI group, there is a smoother flow between everyday conversation and qualified claim. This is interesting because it shows that the supportive AI not just focusing on the task, but also trying to make the conversation discussion more fluent or more smooth. Whereas for the contrarian AI, there is a strong link between claims and evidence, suggesting that they are proposing more ideas, but also substantiate these ideas with some evidence. So we can say that this structure change suggests that there's a different interaction style for how that AI persona have the group's conversation. And whether they also, the next question we want to ask is whether students build on each other's ideas or challenge each other's ideas, whether this phenomenon also influenced by the AI persona. And the answer is yes again. So what we found is that supportive AI, as from its name, is encouraging a sense of consensus-oriented collaborations. So everyone is building on each other's idea, making the ideas more concrete and more elaborative. But so they can arrive at agreement in terms of the rankings. Whereas for the contrarian AIs, we see more ideas externalizations, more types of conflict negotiations. So they are challenging each other's idea, but not in a nonsense way, but in a productive disagreement, but in a form of productive disagreement. So the AI persona in this study has shifted the regulatory style of collaboration, right? But supportive versus contrarian is manifest into cohesion versus constructive tension. This actually has some implication for our teaching, right? For how we try to organize team. It depends on the type of learning task or depends on the learning objective we're trying to build through this collaboration. Either we want students to further elaborate their arguments and to build on top of their arguments, or we want to make a little bit of tension in the team. So from this study, from this analysis, we can see that the AI has fundamentally reshaped how students engage in collaborative reasoning, where the supportive AI is becoming more, fostering more integrative and consensus-oriented discourse, whereas the contrarian actually encourage students to challenge and critically engage with each other's arguments. So the process has changed, but has the outcome changed? Well, we used we modeled several metrics based on these different aspects. And I won't go into details, but it looks pretty complicated, but it's just fractions, right? It's just fractions. So we used we use linear mixed effect model to model whether these different process changes has some actual effects on their performance. That is their decision before and after. So there's three different types of three different model that gradually builds on top of each other. The now model actually assess where there is a substantial group differences, and then we're adding the individual metrics, which is their quantity of participation as well as their argument, the argument index. We're also adding some, the second model, they further added some group level metrics. I'll share there's no need to try to understand this because it's a bit too complex, but I'll share the preprint later, yeah. So going directly to the results, we can see that there is actually some effects on the actual performance. Well, you can see the negative significant results. That actually indicates performance, performance gain, because it shows that the distance between their response and the actual response is actually reduced after the discussion. So suggesting that having more epistemic adequacy, which is having a more built-up arguments, will improve their final response. And within the contrarian AI condition, their performance also improved, suggesting that when we put AI with a contrarian persona in the group, after they interacting with these AI, their performance improved. So this suggests that it's not just the process is influencing, but also some part of the outcome of their decision. And the comparison is made between the AI groups and the human groups. So the contrarian AI group outperformed the human group. So I think the key takeaway from this is that when we have these different AI teammates in the collaboration process, they are not shaping the quantity of collaboration. They are not making students talking more or talking less, but they are shaping the quality of collaborations. They are enhancing the epistemic depth across reasoning, argumentation, and social regulations. And these learning gains are actually driven by the epistemic adequacy, which is also influenced by the AI persona, especially for the contrarian AI. So we move to the second task, which is a more interesting one, personally. I think it's more interesting. And this is actually a classical moral dilemma. Everyone knows the trolley problem, right? Like whether you choose to sacrifice one or sacrifice 5. And this problem gets even more interesting because because it gets into the modern society, it becomes automated vehicle problem. And you as the programmer, you will decide if there's 10 people suddenly appeared in front of the road and the vehicle is on automatic driving, would you save the passenger by keeping the vehicle going straight forward and crashing the 10 people? Or would you turn the vehicle, which would eventually lead to the death of the passenger? And there's a Nature paper on this, I think, on the, I think it's called moral machine experiment. They also adding an extra option of randomization. So you don't have to decide. we let fate decide. And I think this is really interesting because it actually doesn't force you to choose something. And this idea of randomization could potentially be influenced by how you later communicate with people, because your thoughts might be more easily influenced by others, because it shows that you cannot decide. So to revisit the design, we first let the participants to have a choice, either to kill 1 or kill 10. And they also provide their moral justification of why. Then we again engage them into group of 3, and finally they were asked to choose again to see if there's any changes in their decision or if there's any changes in their justification. And in this study, what we want to understand beyond, what we are trying to understand is that whether having AI teammates with different persona, supportive or contrarian, will change how they frame their moral argument and change how they reason with each other. And not just a static view, but also trying to see whether any changes on the semantic trajectory and the relational structure of their argument. And finally, we also want to know if these changes in process has any impact on their final decision, or that's the product. So we use the extended moral foundation dictionary to automatically code the dialogue of students within the discussions, and it gives you a count of different moral words related to care, fairness, loyalty, authority, and sexity. And we can then model the occurrence of different words using a regression model, and to see if there's any changes in the occurrence of the words between different conditions. What we found is that, well, the moral words are actually pretty rare. So 70% of the uterines had none of these moral words. But when used, when these moral words were used, they were mostly dominated by care, then loyalty, and fairness. So most of the moral argument, or the moral reasoning is centered around caring. Caring for the passenger or caring for the pedestrian. And we can see there is a slight increase in care framing for the contrarian AI group compared to the control ones. However, overall, having AI infused with the team did not radically change which moral foundation were used. But what it did change, is we can see that. But what it did change is how they reason with each other. So we can see that overall, most of the around 80% of the conversations are centered around reasoning, and supportive AI have led to higher frequency or occurrence of moral reasoning compared to the human groups. Whereas the contrarian AI actually showed similar compared to the control group. So there's no drop in the quality in terms of the reasoning. And so from this finding, we can see that the supportive AI actually deepens the argument quality, and whereas the contrarian AI that constantly argue with you did not harm your reasoning. Well, it had not affect, but it did not diminish your reasoning. We're then trying to model the trajectory of how this reasoning evolved over time. Again, we used a combination approach that combined bird topic to automatically classify and then use a dynamic time wrapping to see the trajectory. What we can see is that contrarian AI over here, as you can see, it cycles between care and fairness, but it didn't have, compared to the other group, it didn't have a concise focus in terms of the moral foundation. This suggests that the contrarian AI group actually keeps the arguments going. It keeps changing between fairness and caring. So this actually allows them to explore more ideas or more aspect of the moral foundation when they're trying to build their argument. Whereas for the supportive AI, you can see on the right, you can see that they are gradually building towards a care-focused discourse. So they are building on each other's arguments over time. We then model, that is the semantic trajectory. We then model the relation structure using ENA. What we can see is that the supportive AI group showed a much denser connection between qualified and grounded claims and care and fairness, suggesting that they reflecting a more elaborative and, again, consensus-oriented reasoning structure. Whereas the contrarian AI promoted a more value-diverse grounding. So the network features a strong grounded links across multiple moral foundations, indicating a more diverse and more reflective moral integrations. So again, we can see that the persona actually shaped how students in these different groups reason in distinct ways. The supportive is more are consolidating affirmative and coherent moral reasoning, whereas the contrarian AI are ensuring we are exploring different moral ideas. And finally, we want to see if these changes in the process, again, whether it's predictive of their performance. We want to analyze from two different aspects. The first is whether it's changing their decision, is their choice of killing one or a swear or stay, or random, and whether it also changes how they justify their response. Well, from a frequency point of view, only 1 in 5, that is around 20% of the participants actually changed their moral decision afterwards. So not much. And most of the participants who changed their decision actually choose random at the start. So the most significant predictor is actually the baseline. So the different groups did not influence whether they are whether they have changed their decision or not. However, there is a small effect on their justifications. So we can see both higher reasoning quality and greater use of moral language predict more integrated post-discussion explanations. However, as you can see, the R square, which is the explaining variability, is pretty small. It's only 0.04%. This suggests that the AI we put in the group, so the different AI group, did change how they reason during the group discussion phase, but didn't really much change what they decide. And this also has some implication for, I think also has some implication for our instructional design or how we design collaborative activity. Because we can use these supportive or contrarian AI to encourage students either to explore different moral ideas. It could also be other domain, or we can use it to encourage more built arguments from different within the group. So again, we can. I think what we found in this study is that it changed the process, but it did not persuade the participants to make a different decision. And for the final task, we explored how it changes the collaborative, the creative process of students. And this work is still ongoing, so I don't have any results yet. But we also want to explore whether having different AI with different persona will change how they will change the diversity of the idea they discussed during the group discussion, and whether this change in the group discussion had any effects on their final stories. So I think from these different studies, we can see a phenomenon that we termed the social blind spot, which is when we have AI that is indistinguishable from human. We put them into collaborative learning. They have these kind of subtle influence on how collaboration or how discourse unfolds in group. And these influence, because the humans cannot accurately distinguish these AI as AI, cannot actually distinguish these AI as AI, we can see that they are also unconscious about the influence. And we term this as the phenomenon of social blind spot in human AI collaboration. So I think there's several implications for this phenomenon. First is that when we put in AI teammates that is indistinguishable from human into teams, it will definitely change how students reason, argue, and coordinate with each other, even when students do not realize that AI was present. So this suggests that AI is not just a tool that runs in the background, but it can function as a social and epistemic actor in the learning ecology. If the AI influence is invisible, it is really easy for us to under-regulate because we assume it's just a tool, or we over-trust its effects on, or we over-trust its role in the, assume it doesn't have any influence on the collaboration. So this actually brings up a new aspect of AI governance, because normally when we talk about AI governance, we are talking about data governance, algorithm governance, but their persona actually also needs to be governed. So we need to make sure that any AI persona we infuse with AI actually being disclosed to students. And we will further explain this, we need to further explain potential impact of these AI persona on students' collaboration, on their process, and how they reason with each other. So but not everything is bad, right? So it does bring up some issues in terms of governance, but it also can be used as a pedagogical lever. So we can use these different AI persona, either supportive or contrarian, to produce distinct learning behaviors from integrative consensus building to potentially productive or more dialogical tension. And when we are using these tools, when we are using persona as a pedagogical lever, we as a teacher are actually the designer of these persona. And we are responsible for ensuring what we could talk about before, the bounded autonomy. We need to define the boundary of the autonomy that we give to the users. So we are more like orchestrating these different hypergroups instead of just instructing or instead of just transmitting knowledge. We still have time.
No, I think we need to close in 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So I think just going to the final, potentially some interesting direction for future research. So when we have these different AIs, as you can see, the supportive AI is making you trying to build up on each other's arguments. But if we always use supportive AI in our collaboration, that might erode the potential friction that we desired in the collaborative process. So it might diminish students' capacity for disagreement or for taking some intellectual risks. So we need to consider when to use these different persona and when to switch from supportive to contrarian. Another issue is that when these different AI with persona are integrated into our curriculum, will there be a hidden shift in terms of how a new generation of learners actually reason or argue with each other? Because we can see that persona does affect on the process of argumentation. So we as teachers need to acknowledge that what we designed or what persona we fuse AI with will have this effect. And we need to consider that as a potential, we need to consider this as an important factor for our learning design. The other one is when, the final one is if we are exposing students to these different AI with different personality, will they become more preferred to interacting with these AI instead of humans? Because the interaction is either more smooth or is more interesting. So that is also something we need to consider when we're trying to infuse our AI with personas. Thank you.